It's going to record, and I'll just set it up to go a little later.
Okay, we'll do that then. We're going to record.
Okay, that sounds great.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going. Hey, this is John with John Finn Studios. We're here at Terror Fest. And we have a wonderful guest with us, Mr. Oliver Robbins. Let me see if we can get the button right on this. And there he is.
Hello, everyone. Hey, I'm live at TerrorFest. So come on down, and I'm ready to answer all of your Poltergeist questions. And I'm sure you have a million of them. And there is no curse, just so you know. But I can talk to you more about that when you come on down to TerrorFest in Conroe, Texas.
Awesome.
And also, I'd like to introduce my new co-host, Lisa.
Hi.
And
How
she's
y'all
a lot
doing?
better at talking to people than I am, which is really weird. I don't know why. I keep looking at the screen and the camera's up here. So
He's the technology part guy. And hi, how are you?
I'm doing great. It's good to be here. I just flew in from Florida.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, and it's beautiful here and chilly, and it was really hot for it. So, people are like, wow, you came from Florida, aren't you? You don't like the cold? I'm like, no, I love being cold.
Oh, I do
know?
too. You live in the warm.
I know.
typically,
Now
right?
it's usually pretty hot. So you're like,
Yeah.
even if I'm freezing, I'm like, oh, it feels so good.
Where are you out of based?
I live in California.
Oh, you
I
do?
also live in Florida, but I'm a resident
nice.
of Florida, and I love it there.
South
And,
Florida, North.
I live near Tampa.
Oh,
and-
okay.
And it's a
Yeah.
gorgeous place. I was actually born in Florida too, so I'm kind of coming back home, and I just love the change of pace. And people are so nice, and it reminds me
Yeah.
of Los Angeles in a lot of ways from the 1980s when I grew up. Before there was intense traffic and all these crazy things were going on there. So I just loved being there, and just it's such a change of pace from LA.
Very cool. So you must be in, this temperature is more like the 70s, probably like right now, right?
I think in Florida, yeah, it's perfect there. So come on down to Florida and visit the Sunshine State.
No, not right now.
No.
No, do that later. Come on to Conroe, even though
Yeah,
it's only 54 of a high
Go
today.
to Conroe first, and then head over to Florida
there
because
you
it's
go.
it's a Sunshine State. The Conroe's where you want to go first, and you want to come to TerrorFest to see me and everything here. This place is really cool. There's lots of cool stuff too.
So how did you get started in the entertainment industry?
My parents put me in a small box and beat me every day and said, Oliver, you're going to act, and we need to take all your money. And I was beaten every day. No, I'm kidding. No, I'm joking. There was no child abuse at all. I had to say that.
Okay.
No. I was growing up in Los Angeles, and I watched these kids on TV, and I was like, I think I could do what they do. And my parents, honestly, they were the opposite of what I was just joking about. They didn't even want me to do it. They were totally like protective, and they said,
really?
yeah. So I wanted to play Little League one day. I wanted to be a fireman another day. And I said, I want to be an actor. They said, oh, okay. So they put me in a commercial workshop class. And it was fun. And I had a great time. My parents said, okay, at the end of the class, we'll move on to something else. And the teacher, by the name of Sheila Manning, great casting agent of the 1980s. A lot of movies you've seen and commercials of the day. She was like, she told my parents, Oliver's really good. He should act professionally. And my parents were like, I don't know. And she said, no, I'll introduce him to a couple agents. You don't have to do anything. He'll go in and meet it. And I met with this agent named Herb Tannen, and that's the child acting agent in the 1980s.
Really?
And they said, Oliver, I met with them. I said, okay, we're gonna send you an audition. I had no experience like whatsoever. I'm like, what am I doing? It's a pizza commercial. And I remember the audition was right off Sunset Boulevard, and I was so nervous. And I walk in this room with all these people, because commercials have a lot of executives where you have to meet with everyone. And they hand me this cold slice of pizza. I never acted before. And they said, we want you to eat this pizza. I don't know if they were playing with me, but they said, we want you to believe this is the most delicious pizza on the earth. So I pick it up and I pretend to eat it. I don't know, my acting is not that great, but it's my very first audition.
Yeah. How did it go? Did you get the part?
No, I didn't get that part. But
Oh.
you the thing is, you can't get discouraged. It's like every part you offer, you have 1,000 auditions that you might get one. And you never can take it personal. People are like, you can't take rejection like, oh, they don't like me. Because I learned
That's hard.
Yeah, but you learn. I'm a filmmaker now myself, so there's so many things going on. They have to put the family together. They want to do. There's so many elements you don't know about as an actor, so you can never take it personally. Even when they comment on your acting, and they don't
Really?
Yeah, I once did an audition, and honestly, I wasn't prepared. I went to the studio, and I didn't know my lines, and I was just I was doing my homework, and I wasn't ready for this audition. And they actually called my agent, the casting person, and said, we expect more from Oliver. Oliver wasn't prepared. And I said, yeah, no, I admit it. I just wasn't. I wasn't ready for the audition.
So what did you do when you went to auditions and they gave you that kind of feedback? Did you take it to heart? Did you
No,
use that, or?
you just, and I knew it. I mean, I knew it. I knew
Yeah.
I wasn't ready. Because even if you're a kid, a teenager, there's a certain level of professionalism you have to come up to. You have to be ready. It's you might see it as a fun, as a hobby, but they're making movies,
Right.
and they need you to be, ready to act, so the director can direct you. So, and that's really important. So you just do, you work. It's a process, and you have to come up to that level of professionalism that they need you at.
That's pretty great. So what was your first solid role?
My very first commercial was I did this fertilizer commercial for Turf Builder, and
okay.
it was I know it was a fertilizer. I can really say I was selling shit. And strangely enough, the guy who played my dad in the commercial wrote a movie called Starman and Stand By Me too.
No
Ray
way.
Gideon.
Really?
So, because a lot of writers, we need to make money in other forms while we try to make it, and because being an artist is very tough sometimes. So he played my dad in the commercial too. And later, he did Starman. He wrote Starman and wrote Stand By Me.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
And I saw him years later. I couldn't do Stand By Me, but I auditioned for it because they wanted me to audition. So I went in and read for Rob Reiner and Ray Gideon, who wrote it. I said, I remember I was with you in that commercial. Oh yeah. And they were great. Yeah, they were Rob Reiner. And I actually acted with Rob Reiner, believe it or not.
Did you?
Years earlier, he played my dad
Wow.
in this TV movie too. And Rob was just fantastic.
Wow. So it sounds like you've had a lot of work when you were a kid.
Oh yeah.
Oh, wow.
Well, it's kind of not totally true. I mean, the things I did, I worked with a lot of great people, but I didn't do that many things. So I maybe did half a dozen projects.
Oh, but you got a chance to see and hear a lot of people.
I worked with I learned so much from just a level. When I talk about professionalism, Ralph Bellamy. I don't know if you heard him. He was in this movie called Springtime at Campobello about FDR. And he won an Academy Award for it. You might know him in Trading Place. He's played one of the old guys, the trader. That was him. He did a lot of movies before that too.
Oh, wow.
But he just came to wearing a suit, and he was professional. He had a script and a leather case, and said, "Oh, this is how you want to break down your script." And he kind of showed me this is the way you want to hold yourself on set. So he came from a whole different era of cinema during the studio era. And I think it was just great. And he was such a gentleman. And he treated everyone with such great respect on the set and treated the crew. And it just showed me this is the way you should be on a movie set as an actor.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. So throughout all this, when did you land the Poltergeist role?
It was, I only done like 2 commercials at the time. And it was an open call, which is basically the public. Anyone in this room could go audition for it. They just wanted me. It was, I guess they had looked in New York and Chicago and Florida, and they just didn't know who to get for the part.
Yeah.
So they were like kind of desperate because they were like 60 days away from shooting.
Oh gosh.
So
Okay.
I heard about this audition from my agent, and then my mom was like, "Do you really want to go down there?" I'm like, "Sure, I'll just wait. We have nothing else to do. Why don't we just go down?" So I waited in a line for like hours for this audition. And during the interview, they asked me like, "Oliver, I didn't know any of the story of Poltergeist." I said, "What are you afraid of?" And I said, "Well, personally, I'm afraid of clown dolls and trees and all the things that my character was actually afraid of." And they're looking for a kid who was natural.
Yeah.
So I went out for that, and they asked me, and they said, "You seem like the kid." So I finally got the sides, and I was reading the lines, and I had trouble screaming. And and they're like, and Toby Hooper said to me, he took me aside. He was a great guy, and he said, "Oliver, the secret to a horror movie is the scream. You need to be able to scream, and because that's where the terror comes from."
Yeah.
So I was like, "Oh my God, what am I going to do? I can't scream." So believe it or not, there's people in Los Angeles that will teach you how to scream. So this older actress, I forgot her name. I went to
That's
her.
amazing.
I know. It's going for it's Hollywood.
Yeah.
It's the world of Hollywood. So I met with this lady, and great actress, a great older actress in the studio era, and she taught me how to scream. She said, "This is what you want to do, and you want to know this." She showed me what to do as a kid. I'm like, "Okay, I get it." So I go back in for another audition, and I scream, and I am getting the part.
Do you still know how to do that?
Yeah, a little bit. Now, well, you could see that. if I can push my latest project.
Go ahead. Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Please.
I did a movie called Celebrity Crush, and it's on Amazon Prime.
Oh, no
and
way.
It's
Okay.
the first film I've acted in like 30 years. Or so.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it was really fun. I directed this too. Yeah, so
Wow.
it's this horror movie. It's on Tubi now, and it's about this psycho fan who falls in love with this guy who was in the movie. This movie that was made in the 1980s called Shamefaced Clown. She's like the super fan, becomes like super obsessed with him, seduces this guy at this convention, takes him home, and when he doesn't want to spend the rest of his life with her, she traps him and then plays out all weird kind of fantasies. So.
It sounds
not based on a true story. Don't worry.
Oh.
So yeah, and it's kind of a black comedy horror. It's kind of she's totally over the top, completely insane, and we had a lot of fun shooting this thing. And you can see it on Tubi and Amazon Prime, and it's called Celebrity Crush.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah.
And you scream in that.
Yeah, and I scream. So you get to see me scream. You actually get to see me scream in the trailer, I believe, too. So
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah. So yes, I can still scream.
Okay.
There's one question I think because I didn't recognize you from Poltergeist, to be honest, but I did remember you from this little movie called Airplane.
Yes. Yeah. That was a nice break after Poltergeist. In Poltergeist, I was covered by gook and soot for like an entire like summer. So when I got to Airplane, I got to wear a little suit, and I got pies in my face, and I had really the best time of it. And everyone was so kind on that shoot. And Robert Hayes and Julie Haggerty were just mellow and just very laid back, and that's great as a kid because you really need a mellow environment. To be a child actor, you're comfortable and you feel like emoting and the director was fantastic on that too. It was Ken Finkelman was very low key. And I remember sometimes I'd forget lines. I was a kid. I wasn't the best.
Yeah.
I never was great at memorizing lines, honestly. But you had to do it, and you had to get the line perfect. And I remember the script supervisor yelled at me, said, "Oh, you got to get that line perfect." And Ken was like, "No, relax, man, relax. I'll really get it."
Got it.
And having that kind of director was so great. Just the more comfortable I felt, I did remember all the lines, and I got it. And they're like some of the lines. With airplane movies are tongue twisters, especially when you're like 9, 10 years old too. So it was a great set.
Actually, that one scene where you're up there with pilot, I think it was Pilot Over.
Yeah.
You've been to men's prison?
He said something like, Peter Graves is so great. He ad-libbed a lot of the lines.
Are you
believe it or not.
serious?
Really?
Okay.
And he said things, I don't think it's made it in there, but he said, do you like when dogs play leapfrog, but don't quite make it? He was like afraid to get into trouble for a lot of these things, but he just thinks right off the cuff. He said these lines.
That's
Yeah.
brilliant.
It was so brilliant. It was so genius.
Wow. That's really cool.
So, I was really lucky because I got to be in these films with these crews were just fantastic and just kind to me. And you hear, and I believe all the horror stories of ex-child actors who had these nightmare experiences, and I believe it because power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely, as they say. I never ran into that experience at all. They really protect their parents though too.
How did what you went through as a kid and learning from all these different directors, how does that affect your style now as a director?
I think I know what it is to be an actor. So, and being an actor, you might think, wow, this person is very extroverted. Well, actually, most actors are very quiet, introverted people. I've found, and they're insecure, and you're putting yourself out there, and you have to trust the director to say, you're going to do this, you're going to scream, I want you to be up here at this level. And you have to be able to trust the director that he's not going to put you in a place that's going to make you look foolish.
Yeah.
And that's really the job of the director to make, not to mention, in terms of performance. Mm-hmm. And the other side of being a good director is understanding all the technical things. How are you going to tell your story? How are you going to do visual design? What's your tone? And how should I shoot this? Should I shoot it from over here? And knowing all the rules of filmmaking, like the line, you have a hypothetical 180 line. Am I crossing the line? How do I shoot this? So you have to understand the technical side, and at the same time, you have to have an actor do the things that are right for camera, but it's not explained. Like, I want you, and the worst directors I feel are people that don't understand what an actor has to go through. So I need you to stand here. And an actor's thinking, I need to stand for what reason? And there's a real technical reason because you're on this side of the line and we're doing this piece of coverage, but you have to explain in terms of emotion and story, not a technical reason, because that's what you're coming from in terms of performance. So a good director, I think, and that's what Spielberg and Hooper had. They could balance the technical side with with the performance side too. And otherwise, you have people that are technicians. You're not really, you're not directing actors.
Okay, so you got to be able to wear quite a few hats.
Yeah.
And juggle quite a few ways of thinking in order to direct successfully. So you took a lot from your.
Well, I went to film. Well, I kind of cheated in a way. I didn't learn that all from the. I went to film school at USC.
Oh,
so,
you did?
Yeah, I graduated at USC. So, and that is that. Yeah, I mean, USC was just great in terms of teaching you about filmmaking. I mean, everything you need to know to make a movie, you'll learn that. You'll do there because you work with your buddies for 4 years, and you'll do you'll make movies every weekend. So you learn from your mistakes, and then you show the movies, and you go, and they take you apart. You have to. It's like boot camp almost, and they say, Oliver, why'd you shoot it like that? What were you doing with your camera? And they ask you these questions. You get grilled, and now's the time to make mistakes because when you go to the professional mode, everything you shoot has to be usable and has to really kind of make sense.
Right.
So film school's a great place. You see your films, and you make mistakes, and sometimes mistakes are brilliant. You start to learn the craft.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
That some of these mistakes might be just the right thing to do.
You might say, oh my God, I crossed the line here.
Yeah.
And you know what? That's awesome for that shot because it's really jarring. And instead I lost my sense of geography in the scene and I put the camera in the wrong place. But that actually worked for that moment. But the most important thing is to understand what you just did. I did cross the line. Not like, oh shit, I can't use this coverage because it doesn't none of it's going to cut together. I mean, sometimes you see that in film and you're like, why do they shoot that? And it takes you out of the movie,
Like the original Super Mario Brothers movie.
I never
bad directors on that one.
I never saw it, so I can't.
Oh, the story behind that movie is better than the movie.
Sometimes, but this is the thing. I've made not so great films in the past myself. So I have compassion for filmmakers because it's so hard to make even the worst movie. You have to go through the same process, and it's so hard just to shoot something and go through the process and get it finished and get it released. So even if you make a really bad film, that's an amazing accomplishment. It's like really true.
Okay, well that's good to know. It sounds like you have to have ego and yet put it aside at the same time to be able to make your way through Hollywood and be tenacious about it.
Yeah, you have to. I think you have to be. I know friends that have been trying to get projects off the ground for 20 years, and they can't. Wow. And for years, so you have to be really passionate. You have to believe in yourself and the project you're working on because if you don't, no one else will. And sometimes you're going to hear things from executives, and there's a lot of brilliant, wonderful executives. And other people might not really share your vision or not understand what you're trying to do, and you can't take it to heart because it's a high probability they're probably wrong. Like my old,
That's amazing.
Like my old manager, who was a great guy, he died of AIDS. It was just awful in the 1980s, terrible thing. But he was a manager of Rob Lowe, among Chad Lowe, and among other actors of that era. And he really made a good point. When I was rejected and things, he said, Oliver, their job is to say no to you. That's what their job. Their job is to say no, not say yes.
Yeah.
And Tim Wood was just so right about that.
Do you have any recommendations for people who might be interested in getting into film or acting or anything like that? Is there anything that you would put out there for them?
Don't avoid it. No, I'm kidding. No, I know. I think you really have to be passionate. I think it's something you really have to love because it is. Film industry is very difficult on every avenue of the film industry is really tough to enter.
I don't think a lot of people know that.
Yeah, no. So you have to really love it, and you have to plan on being poor. And not to say you can't succeed and make millions, but you have to do it out of a place of love, because you might not ever make that much money. And most working actors don't really make that much money. You might make a living, but people think of like Tom Cruise, and that's awesome when you get
millions
to that
and millions.
Millions, but for the most part, it really doesn't have. Most actors never achieve that level, but it doesn't matter to them because they love it so much. So people say, I have people that say, I want to be famous or I want to make a lot of money. And that's why I want to act or make movies. That is actually
it's not going to last.
It's not going to. That's not the reason why you do it because it's so difficult and such a tough industry that if you're there for that reason, you're going to probably burn out pretty rapidly.
Wow.
You have to have a passion for cinema and acting. And like all my friends from USC, we're basically all film geeks, and we love talking about movies. We love acting in films or making movies and talking about movies, and that's what we do. It's like it's our thing. So it doesn't really matter. We do like it when we're off. Like I was friends with my friend Bill Nelson, whose father directed Black Hole. Gary Nelson directed Black Hole, among other Freaky Friday with Jodie Foster, and it's fun. I'd go over to their house, and all we did was talk about movies. I'd come into their house in the kitchen. They would be watching films, and we said we're watching westerns, and we'd say, "Oh, they crossed the line in that shot, and look at that, Oliver. There's two different suns because the key light is coming from over here, and when they do coverage on this side, the key light's it." So we break movies down. So when he wasn't on set directing, he'd be sitting there watching movies, and that's what we did. So you have to love it, So that's my really. I get to make a long story short. I think you just have to love making films and love cinema. So much.
Period. End of story.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. I really appreciate you being frank about that because
Yeah.
you don't hear a lot of people coming out and being so open
Yeah, you should be.
and honest about what it takes. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
One of
I
those
have
when it came to
one
like
question.
people doing like what they're passionate about with the movies, like if they be rich or famous or anything like that. Me, I did student film, and then I also did voice acting. I was just happy to see my name go across the screen.
That is weird. I mean, it's weird. When I was a kid, I was honestly really introverted and believe it or not, I was doing these things that for there was an extra person doing, but I was really shy. So. And it was really freaky for me, actually, to see myself. When the trailer for Poltergeist came out, we went to the theater. I was going to another movie, and then Poltergeist was there. And I was like, oh, my God, there's my face in the screen. And I was so nervous. I didn't know how to even handle the thing. So my dad felt bad for me. It was so cute. He gave me a baseball hat and sunglasses to wear. So it's okay, Oliver. No one will recognize you now.
That's awesome. What a nice dad.
Yeah, it was really great. So, yeah.
Do you have any other questions, Tyler? I have one more question.
Yeah.
And you mentioned this in the beginning.
Yeah.
I just want to clarify it. Do you think that Poltergeist is cursed?
Very much so. No, I'm joking. I'm kidding. No, I think that, this is what I honestly think. I believe in ghosts and mysticism and all these things that a lot of we don't understand in this world. But in terms of the Poltergeist reality, I don't think it's cursed at all because everything on the set was fully explained. All the deaths happened in such a way, in a tragic way, but they weren't this. It wasn't like The Omen where like things are freaky, bizarre things that are like unexplainable occur. Like Julian Bett, it was tragic. I mean, he was dying of cancer long before he even did the movie. So people said, well, but he knew he was dying, and he got to do what he loved. He was on set, and he loved acting so much. He was on set because I always saw him, and I was thinking, this man is dying of cancer. He seems so happy, and I kind of thought about that. He got to do what he loved to the very, very end.
Oh, that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, so things like that. And I think they're just a series of tragic events that they're not really related to each other. But if you really think about it, I mean, a lot of movies have these issues and different things, but they don't. Horror movies are not well-known movies.
Yeah.
So that's, and that's what I kind of believe, and I want to hope so because I want to live longer. No.
Actually, I lied. I do have one more question.
Yeah.
What do you think about the horror genre in particular?
I love the horror genre too.
Yeah.
Because it's always changing and building on itself. And people love ever going back to Nosferatu from turn of the century.
Yeah.
It's a vampire film. People love that. We're still making vampire movies.
We are. And TV shows.
And TV shows. And 50 years from now, we're going to have new vampire movies and different things. So the genre is, and I think it's really, honestly, more forgiving in a lot of ways, too. That different genres aren't like that. And it also doesn't have the support, too. Like, horror fans are so committed, and they love you, and they love your movies, and, and they treat them like children,
Yeah.
Because I remember the remake of Poltergeist, and honestly, fans didn't like it, for the most part. And you have to kind of, and as a filmmaker, and I appreciate what they did because I know how hard it is to make a movie, but you kind of have to take it to heart and go, hey, and like with my friends in film school, we talk about it and say, you screwed up. This is what we want. This is what went wrong. What can we do better? And horror fans are going to tell you, and like all fans, but horror fans especially because they're very committed, and they'll tell you what they think. And I think you should listen, because they know fans know what they want and they know what they want to see.
You got that right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
thank you so much for coming over and talking to us today.
You're welcome.
We really appreciate it.
Oh, no, it's a pleasure,
Super
too.
awesome to meet
It
you.
was a pleasure, too.
Yes.
Well,
That's great.
And just so you want to plug your new show again one more time.
Yes. And once again, here's my announcer voice. You should watch Celebrity Crush. And that's on Tubi and Amazon Prime and all the streaming services. I don't think it's on Netflix, unfortunately, but it's on everything else.
Awesome.
So, yeah, it's a horror comedy, and just watch it and write me about it. And if you hate it, don't post a bad review, please. Don't. It's okay. You can still post a bad review. Just
know
post
what
a
I'm
review
watching
anyways. Yeah, but you're going to love it, though.
Thank you again.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And that was Mr. Oliver Robbins, and we will be back later on today with more interviews and whatever else random stuff we can think of throughout the day.
Yes.
So once again, thank you again.
Jamie,
for
My
coming on the
pleasure.
show.
Take care.
My pleasure, guys.
Thank you.
That was really fun, too.